Brother, Do You Love Me? Published by Little Toller Books in 2022, although the American edition has just come out, and written by Emmanuel Coe, Manni Coe, and illustrated by his brother Reuben. Here's the story. Manni is one of 4 brothers born to a Christian family or a Christian couple living in Leeds, part of Western Yorkshire. The first 3 sons are born in relatively close succession, but the 4th son, who was born when Manni is 10 years old, has Down syndrome, Reuben. At first, Manni writes, people's reactions brought us closer together as a family. They all bond around Reuben, and he's this fun-loving character, theatrical, everybody's favorite brother. He makes these comments that become family jokes, but he's the much younger brother. The older brothers begin to fly the nest, start their own lives. Reuben comes of age, turns 19 years old. The parents are getting older. They're about to retire. They read that for Down syndrome people, mourning is more drawn out and complicated. They start thinking about Reuben's dependence or independence, and so they find a home to put him in, part of the British social services, which is basically free. They put him in the system, and at first it goes well, but as Manni writes, in the care system, the quality of care is only as good as the people working in any particular home or organization. People change, they get new jobs. Reuben starts to slip through the cracks. He begins drinking too much. He begins hoarding. He begins retreating into himself. So Manni comes from Spain, where he's moved to, pulls him out of the care system, and takes him with him to Spain. They live on the Mediterranean coast in Spain, in Malaga. He's living with a friend at the time. Emmanuel ends up meeting his future partner, Jack. Jack and Reuben hit it off. Jack and Manni end up buying this olive farm in Archidona, which is inland in Malaga. They call it the Sanctuary. Meanwhile, Manni works as a tour guide all around Spain and even outside of Spain. Jack works in finance, but it seems to be going well. They take Reuben with them. They think they're going to take care of Reuben for the rest of their lives. But challenges pop up. Reuben can't really learn Spanish. One night, he's alone in the house because Manni is giving some tour and Jack is in England on business, and this terrible storm takes place, and Reuben, when he's alone in the house, begins to think about his mortality. And this sends him into a depression, which he can't really get out of. And he passes out one day in a restaurant. He really can't climb out of this depression, so Manni and Jack decide to bring him back to England. He lives for a while with his parents, but his parents coddle him too much. They end up finding a place called Portland Place, which again seems to be excellent, but they put Reuben into it. But again, 5 months later, the pandemic hits. The care system in England falls to pieces. Again, Reuben falls through the cracks. He holes up in his room basically for 5 months. Nobody can visit him. One day, he sends a message to his brother Manni, "Brother, do you love me?" All lowercase, period after every word. Manni realizes that it's a call for help. His tour guide business has been decimated by the pandemic, so he goes to England to rescue Reuben from the care system in England, and he realizes that his brother is basically silent. He's not speaking anymore. He's numb with antidepressants. He writes this line is, how was it that my jubilant, happy-go-lucky, daring young brother was lost in silence? That is basically the story of this book. How Manni tries to pull Reuben out of his funk, out of his silence, to bring him back into himself. The book is about the ups and downs of caring for someone who's dependent on you, but who's depressed, who is stubborn, who wants to do things his own way. For example, just imagine, like in Manni's case, all right, having to get Reuben out of bed when he doesn't want to every single morning and trying to do it gently. Reuben wants to stay in bed all day, and Manni knows he's got to get him out of bed, but he doesn't want to get him out of bed, and he's got to do it every single day. The book is about patience. It's about frustration. It's about the rage that sometimes surges up when patience gives out and the frustration is too much. It's about the presumptuousness of the care system. How sometimes the personnel of the care system believe that they have the patient's best interests at heart and know more or know better than the patient's loved ones. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Especially in England, where the care system is part of social services, they're footing the bill. It's about having to justify oneself before that care system, explain oneself before that care system. There's a great scene where Manni is speaking to Reuben's psychiatrist, and Reuben's psychiatrist says to Manni, or advises Manni not to have too much ambition for Reuben. And Manni writes, clearly, his ambition for Reuben and mine do not match. And he goes on to explain, of course I have higher ambitions for Reuben because I've known him since he was a boy. I know what he's capable of. And the psychiatrist doesn't. But at the same time, the book is extremely self-reflective. And Manni will write this great line. He writes about how so much frustration and damage happens in that space between expectation and ability. What a great line. The book is very, very emotionally wise. But it's also about the joys of finding gems in that system. People who are almost saint-like in their empathy and tireless support. It's about the joy of feeling needed. It's about the joy of breakthroughs. It's about, as he says, or it deals with the question of whether we, the family, should be responsible for his daily life and choices, or should it be social services? It's about where I would say to draw the line between caring too much, cuddling, and caring too little, negligence. There is a kind of happy medium there that Manni is looking for. This book is not only for readers who have experience taking care of people with Down syndrome. It's for anyone. For example, my mother has dementia. She's now dependent on people to survive. We've put her in the care system in the United States. And I could relate to Manni's experience because, my mother will wake up in the middle of the night and begin to walk the halls. And so the solution is to drug her, so she won't cause problems for the staff. Or my mother will defend a friend of hers against the staff that she thinks is being unfair. I'm sure my mother doesn't understand this situation, okay? But they want to bring a psychiatrist in to give her tranquilizers. And it's not like my mother's throwing punches, Or I'm a teacher. I'm a university professor. I teach composition to university students, freshman university students. Half of them have been on Adderall since they've been 10 years old because they couldn't pay attention in class. Children are also dependent on us. How do we deal with children who are dependent on us that have to pass through some kind of system but are problematic to that system? What do we do? Do we, as the parents and the loved ones, have the right to make the decisions of whether they are going to be drugged? Or do the psychiatrists and the people in that system have more say in that type of thing? This is a very, very relevant topic nowadays. The book is also really interesting because, I have a niece who's got Down syndrome. My sister's got 5 kids. And, Magdalena, she not only has Down syndrome, she's got tremendous ups and downs, emotional problems, anger issues. She's a tendency to be a bully. You know, there is this projection or portrayal by the media of what Down syndrome people are like they're affectionate, they're innocent, there's no evil motives. They're almost like they're almost portrayed like lovable pets by the media. Okay? But that's not true. I mean, maybe it is true. Everyone's like that, but they're people first. Like, this is the great thing about the book, because Reuben is depressed. He's gay. There's some great scenes in the book about bonding between Manni and Reuben, because Reuben's also gay. Reuben doesn't accept himself. He doesn't really think or want to believe that he has Down syndrome. I mean, how many of us have trouble accepting who we are? And if maybe we've surpassed that to a degree, at one point in our life, we were kind of in the prison of not accepting ourselves. And so the book also touches on that. Brother, Do You Love Me is a slow book, and that's not a criticism. I mean that it's filled with reflections and thoughts. What drives the narrative is whether or not Manni is going to take over Reuben's care again. I think the reader roots for that. I'm not going to give any spoilers. I hemmed and hawed about buying it because I thought it would be a soft book. I thought it would be a tearjerker. I thought it would be maudlin. It is not. The emotion is earned. The sentences are rigorous. He's a wonderful writer, Manni Coe. The book also has added color because of Reuben's illustrations. There's a great acknowledgement section from Reuben. You know, I would say the book is packed with emotion, but it's restrained emotion. The joys can't really be reveled in because Manni knows that even after there's a breakthrough, tomorrow he's going to have to get Reuben out of bed again. Okay? And even the negative emotions, he's got to control himself. He's always Manni controlling his emotions. And that gives the book a kind of tension. Okay? And there are moments where he breaks out. For example, when he talks to Reuben's psychiatrist. That's just wonderful. It's a wonderful book, man. I mean, it really made me think. It really made me feel. I admired the wisdom. I admired the sentences. It's also good to know that there's another writer living relatively close to me. I live in Seville. He lives in Archidona. I think he gives tours here. It's just good to know that there's another English writer. I think he's writing a book now about transforming this olive farm into a home. He calls it like a sanctuary. I get the sense from his Instagram post that that may be his next book. Anyway, I'm looking forward to reading that too. Check out Brother, Do You Love Me? Check it out.